Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Friday, January the 5th, 2024. Continuing our discussion of the new year, in particular New Year's resolutions, which we've all heard of, if not tried ourselves from time to time. The reading today is from Paul's letter to the Ephesians, the 4th chapter, verses 22 through 24. You were taught to put away your former way of life, wrote Paul, your old self, corrupt and deluded by its lusts, and to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, to clothe yourselves with the new self, created according to the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. I suggested at the end of yesterday's devotion that in that story about the Tournament of Roses parade and the Standard Oil float that ran out of gas, that sometimes as Christians we forget the need for power, the spiritual aspect of our lives to help us make life-changing transitions and improvements. But, resolutions, they've taken on a life of their own. Somebody once said, it's time to make New Year's resolutions. Have you made yours yet? Last year, I made 6 resolutions, and I am proud to say that I kept them all year long. I kept them in an envelope in the top drawer of my desk. And it was somebody else who said, what the new year brings to you will depend a great deal on what you bring to the new year. Something to think about. The Barna organization, they do a lot of surveys and so forth of the behaviors of religious people, particularly Christians. And they've done some research on New Year's resolutions. Not surprisingly, they say that the top resolutions year in and year out have to do with weight and diet and health, followed closely by money, debt, and finances, sort of generalized personal improvement, job and career, and so forth. And the interesting thing is people tend to concentrate on themselves primarily when making priorities for the new year, they point out. And yet so few Americans say they want to improve relationships with others. In their surveys, there was virtually no mention of volunteering or serving others, only a handful of comments about marriage or parenting, almost no responses focused on being a better friend. Only a small fraction of people mentioned improving their connection with God. David Kinnaman, who's the president of the Barna Group, explained the feelings. He said, only 9 out of more than 1,000 survey respondents, that's not quite 1%, mentioned that one of their objectives for the next year was getting closer to God in some way. Even in the rare instance when people mention spiritual growth, it's often about activities undertaken for God rather than a personal pursuit of God or an experience with God. As further proof of our self-oriented concerns, Kinnaman pointed out that virtually none of the survey respondents mentioned anything about becoming more green, about the environment and so forth. And so then finally he puts the findings into context. Americans maintain a love-hate relationship with New Year's resolutions. He says millions of people make them, but they rarely report success as a result. The research underscores that most human beings want to experience some sort of personal change in their lives, but achieving such objectives is both difficult and uncommon, and we saw that in some of the numbers I shared with you yesterday. But then he says this, maybe most problematic. Americans hinge their efforts at personal change by focusing almost exclusively on themselves, rather than realizing that lasting change often comes by serving and sacrificing for others. Churches and faith communities, he says, have a significant opportunity to help people identify what makes for transformational change and how best to achieve those objectives, especially by relying on goals and resources beyond their individualism. And I came across some interesting quotes about making these changes in our hearts, in our faith life. Someone once said, worship is the most powerful, joy-producing, hope-sustaining, life-altering thing a person can do. How many people think about the worship experience and what we take away from it in terms of transforming our lives? John Ortberg said, I need to worship because without it, I lose a sense of wonder and gratitude and plod through life with blinders on. And Blaise Pascal, who is a French philosopher from the 1600s, is often quoted as saying this: there is a God-shaped vacuum in the heart of every person which cannot be filled by any created thing, but only by God, the Creator. And so Pascal is saying that our happiness in the year ahead is not going to come simply through these little changes we make or improvements, as good as they may be and as helpful as they may be. The real lasting change has to do with becoming that new creation that we talked about. Dr. Larry Pettin sums it up by saying the truth is that everything in our life rises and falls on our relationship with God. And yet few of us give it the proper attention and cultivation that's required in this relationship to keep it strong and vibrant. Again, some food for thought, taking that idea of New Year's resolution and transformation maybe in a different direction, on a different level. Well, we'll be back again one more time this week to wrap up this discussion of New Year's resolutions. Until then, take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.